My name is Tim Conkling. I'm an independent developer in San Francisco, and I'm giving a talk about building a 2D level editor in 30 seconds. And a very brief public service statement. There are a bunch of screenshots from games that I've been prototyping, and they all contain stolen art. So if you see something that you have made,
it's fair use.
Then yes, then I thank you also for. So I'm going to start with a story, a very short story. So essentially, a few months ago, I was prototyping a game, and I had gotten to the point where all of the core systems were built. This is a 2D game. The core systems were built, and I needed to build a test level in order to continue prototyping. And the first thing that I did was I took out my XML editor and I started handwriting levels in XML. And anybody who's tried this knows that this doesn't scale at all. Because essentially, as soon as you get to a point where you have more than a handful of entities in a scene, it's a real pain to edit anything. And also, entering XY coordinates by hand is no way to do editing. So what I did next was I decided that the right thing to do was to build an in-engine editor. It took me about 3 weeks to do, and at the end of those 3 weeks, I had a very usable editor that was in engine, so it had all, it had access to all of my game assets, and it was really easy to make changes to. Anything that was in the game could be easily integrated into the editor, and at the end of those 3 weeks, I had a handful of prototype levels. Usability-wise, it was pretty good, and I would have kept using it, but literally a week after completing this project, I put the game on ice for scoping reasons that were actually completely unrelated to the editor, but it meant that those 3 weeks were essentially sunk. And I also realized that, it didn't take much to realize that my editor was lacking in a number of ways. It didn't have undo redo. It didn't have copy paste support. It didn't have nice ways of drawing with brushes or anything like that. And it really didn't stack up to generic tools like the Unity editor or Unreal Ed or whatever. So I began work on a prototype of a new game, and I had all of the sort of core systems in place, and it was time to build a level editor again. And I decided that I was not going to repeat the mistakes of the past, and so I jumped into Excel, which looks and feels a lot like, in many ways, like you might want a 2D map editor to look. And I formatted the cells so that they were sort of grid-like in shape. And I assigned a handful of symbols, text symbols, to the entities in my game. And I spent half a day, basically, 4 hours, writing a Python script that would extract the text from a comma-separated value export of an XML file and convert it into the format for my game. And this is an obvious thing to do, but it was also a huge, it was a huge help, and it got me much further in a very short amount of time than I had gotten in the 3 weeks that I spent making my custom 2D editor, because Excel has a whole bunch of features built into it that are useful for essentially any sort of editing, any sort of structured editing. It has undo redo, it has copy and paste, and it has also some surprising features that are surprisingly useful for 2D game development, like find and replace, which I have used a number of times to count the number of a specific type of entity in a scene, or find relationships between, for example, in my latest game, there are quest givers, and they have quest items that are assigned to them, and they're all identified by integers, and so I could easily do a find and replace to make sure that quest giver 3 had a quest item assigned, quest item 3 assigned on the map. But also, really importantly, Excel is fast and it's stable, which my editor was not, and it's extremely reusable. So this talk, the title was about creating a level editor in 30 seconds. It took me about 4 hours to create this level editor, but I factored out basically, the bulk of the code, which was, basically just parsing a CSV and doing, fiddly things with unescaping commas and what have you. Now I have, and in fact everybody has, a reusable Python class that basically just consumes a CSV and presents a very, very simple API for doing 2D level editing. So this is essentially like the 5 or 6 lines of code that are the boilerplate for creating an editor using this CSV grid class. This is an editor I built in under 30 seconds by mostly copy and pasting. This editor is written in Python, and the class that I created is also written in Python. The really nice thing about essentially like using text as your editor is that, or using text as the sort of like fundamental component of your editor, is that it's really, really easy to it's extremely malleable. So for example, like you can have a treasure chest represented by the letter T, and that's or the lowercase t, and that's a treasure chest that has 10 coins in it, and capital T is a treasure chest that has 50 coins. Or you can have the letter T followed by, T50 could represent a treasure chest that's 50 coins long. So anyway, I see that I'm over my 5 minutes, and I really want to end in 5 minutes. So anyway, this is there are great custom tools for doing 2D game layout, but it makes a lot of sense to use existing tools and sort of graduate to graphical tools once you are out of the prototype stage. So that is that. There you go.